air compressor, air tank and the slack adjuster. By the end of this video, you will be able to inspect and service the air compressor, inspect and service the air tank and inspect and service the slack adjuster. Let us collect the tools, equipment and material for this. Trainees Toolkit 1, Socket Spanner with T-Handle 1, Vacuum Assisted Brake System 1, Workbench 1, Wheel Choke 1 set, Cotton Waste as required, Soap Oil as required and Hydraulic Oil as required. Let us start with servicing the air compressor. Dismantling. Release the air and oil from the system. Remove the clamping nuts and take out the compressor from the body. Remove drive connections, cylinder head, reed valves and the base cover plate. Turn the crankshaft and bring the piston to the bottom position. Unlock the lock plate, connecting rod bolts and bearing cap with shell. Remove the piston, rings, connecting rod, end cover and crankshaft. Inspection. Clean all the parts and oil passages. Inspect the cylinder bore for wear, taper and ovality. Check for ring clearance in the piston groove. Inspect the connecting rod and crankshaft bearings. Inspect both reed valves, thrust washer, piston and the cylinder head for cracks. Assembling. Place the crankshaft and the thrust washer in the cylinder block. After changing the oil seal end cover gasket, the compressor body is fixed. Piston, connecting rod and pins are to be assembled. Fix the piston ring on the grooves. Insert the piston and connecting rod into the cylinder using a ring guide. Fit the delivery valve on the valve plate. Reverse the valve plate and fix the inlet reed valve. Assemble the cylinder head and valve plate with a new gasket. Apply grease or oil on the gasket. Fit the cylinder head using fasteners. Fix the bottom cover of the body and fix with the engine promptly. Inspection and servicing of the air tank. Remove the drain air plug. Disconnect the air lines and unscrew the mounting bracket. Unscrew the safety valve bodies, circlip and retaining plate. Withdraw the ball and spring. Inspect for cracks and re-weld where required. Check ball sealing in the valve body and spring and replace if damaged. Place the ball spring and washer in the valve body using the circlip. Assemble the safety valve. Fix the drain plug with a washer. Mount the tank and connect the air lines. Start the engine and check for leaks. Inspection and servicing of the slack adjuster. Remove the clamp from the camshaft. Disconnect the yoke and push rod by removing the clevis. Take out the slack adjuster. Remove the rivets in the covers and remove the wedge plug. Remove the worm shaft lock, spring, worm shaft, worm and gear. Clean and inspect the body for cracks. Check the yoke play and change the bush if the play is high. Ensure that the inside surface of the body where the worm gear functioning is free from burrs. Check worm, gear, worm shaft and worm lock for any wear. Place and position the worm gear in the slack adjuster. Fit a wedge plug lubricating nipple with new one. Finally, rivet the cover at both ends of the body. In this lesson, we have learned to inspect and service the air compressor, inspect and service the air tank, and inspect and service the slack adjuster. Hope you have a clear understanding of this session. Thank you all and see you in the next video. Hello everyone and welcome to this module on the mechanical motor vehicle. In today's video, we will learn to locate air leaks in the air lines and learn general maintenance of the brake system. By the end of this video, you will be able to locate air leaks in the air lines and provide general maintenance and care for the brake system. Let us collect the tools and material required for this. Trainee's toolkit 1, socket spanner set 1, torque wrench 1, outside micrometer 1, cylinder bore gauge 1, kerosene as required, soap oil as required, lubricant oil as required, cleaning oil as required, emery paper as required, grease as required, and soap water as required. Locating the air leak in the air brake lines. Inspect the engine unloader valve on starting. Check air pressure gauge and lines. Switch off the engine and safely park the vehicle. Inspect the air pressure gauge leak by pressing the brake pedal. Check the brake air line using soap water. Check the brake valve and brake chamber line with the help of soap water. Check the brake light switch point. Apply soap water on the brake booster line. General maintenance and care of the brake system. Ensure that the brake shoe and brake drum are free from oil or grease. Ensure that there is no oil air leak in the brake system. Make sure that the clearance between the brake shoe and drum is within the permitted level. Maintain the axle and hub retainers in good position. Ensure that the brake shoe and drum are free from dust. Ensure that the brake shoe return and lock springs are in good condition. Make sure the clearance between the drum and brake shoe is the same in all the wheels. Check if the brake pedal play is within the recommended level. Make sure that the breaker valves are functioning properly. Ensure that the lubrication of linkages is done properly. In this lesson, we have learned to locate air leaks in the airlines and provide general maintenance and care for the brake system. Hope you have a clear understanding of this session. Thank you all and see you in the next video. Hello everyone and welcome to this module on the mechanical motor vehicle. In today's video, let us learn to remove the steering wheel and gearbox from the vehicle. By the end of this video, you will be able to remove the steering wheel and remove the gearbox from the vehicle. Let us collect the tools, equipment and material required to do this exercise. Trainee's toolkit 1, puller steering 1, puller bearing 1, plastic hammer 1, torque wrench 1, vehicle 1, gear oil as required, kerosene as required, oil seal as required, gasket as required, rubber bushes as required. Removing the steering wheel. First, disconnect the battery. Make sure that the engine is turned off and the key is removed from the ignition. The battery will have two terminals, one marked positive and the other negative. The positive terminal usually has a red cover or plus sign, while the negative terminal has a black cover or a negative sign on it. To begin, select either an adjustable wrench or the appropriate socket and ratchet for the task. Use this tool to carefully loosen the nut, securing the negative terminal of the battery. Once loosened, gently detach the negative cable from the battery terminal. Ensure that the cable is positioned away from the battery to prevent accidental contact. Repeat the process for the positive terminal. Loosen the nut, detach the positive cable and position it away from the battery. To safely secure the vehicle, place one wheel choke in front of one of the front tires and another behind one of the rear tires. To access the steering assembly, begin by removing the bottom shield. Utilize the appropriate screwdriver or wrench to remove any retaining screws or clips securing the shield in place. These fasteners are usually located around the perimeter of the shield. Disconnect the horn button and horn wire at the bottom of the steering assembly. Then, depending on the connection type, you may need to release a clip securing the connector, Unscrew a terminal connecting the horn wire to the vehicle's wiring. Unplug a connector by gently pulling it apart. Once the connection is released, carefully disconnect the horn wire from the vehicle's wiring. Release the steering wheel nut lock. Depending on your vehicle, use the appropriate socket, ratchet, or wrench to loosen and remove the steering wheel lock nut. The size of the nut and the tools needed can vary, so check your vehicle's service manual for specifications. Remove the steering nut. Removing the steering wheel. Remove the steering gearbox. Firstly, remove the instrument panel bracket. Locate and remove the fasteners securing the instrument panel to the vehicle's body. These fasteners are often screws or bolts located along the top and sides of the instrument panel. Remove the exhaust pipe from the manifold. Identify the exhaust pipe that connects to the exhaust manifold, which is typically located at the front of the engine. Use a socket set or wrench to loosen and remove the bolts or nuts that secure the exhaust pipe to the exhaust manifold. There may be multiple connections, so repeat this process for each one. Remove the steering column cover plate located on the floorboard. Identify the area around the base of the steering column where it meets the floor. The cover plate may be a separate panel or part of the overall dashboard structure. Use a Phillips head screwdriver or the appropriate tool. Locate and remove any screws or fasteners securing the steering column cover plate. Note the position of the steering gearbox and make a mark on the frame and steering gearbox. This mark will help ensure that the gearbox is reinstalled in the same orientation. Remove the steering gearbox mounting bolts and brackets. Disconnect any additional components attached to the gearbox, such as the pitman arm. Locate and remove the mounting bolts that secure the steering gearbox to the frame. Remove the steering gearbox and take it out through the bottom. Be conscious of the weight of the gearbox as it may require assistance to move. Place the steering assembly on the workbench. In this video, we have discussed how to remove the steering wheel and how to remove the steering box from the vehicle. Hope you have a clear understanding of this session. Thank you all and see you in the next video. Hello everyone and welcome to this module on the mechanical motor vehicle. In today's video, let us learn to inspect and overhaul the steering boxes, adjust the steering gear backlash, preload and adjust the toe in, toe out, camber angle, caster angle, kingpin inclination and wheel runout. By the end of this video, you will be able to dismantle the steering gearbox, inspect the parts of the steering gearbox, assemble the steering gearbox, adjust the backlash and preload in the steering gearbox, fit the steering box on the vehicle and the steering wheel, check toe in, toe out, check the camber angle, check the caster angle and kingpin inclination. Let us collect the tools, equipment and material required for this. Trainee's toolkit 1, plastic hammer 1, torque wrench 1, dial indicator 1, wheel alignment gauge 1 set, vehicle 1, gasket as required, gear oil as required, kerosene as required, oil seal as required, and rubber bushes as required. Dismantle the steering gearbox. Drain the steering gearbox oil by removing the drain plug. Remove the oil filter plug. Loosen the lock nut of the adjusting screw by 1 or 2 threads. Remove the side cover. Remove the side cover packing. Remove the roller shaft from the assembly. Remove the outer column upper cover with the shims. Remove the upper side bearing from the housing. Remove the bottom end cover with the shims and packing. Remove the lower bearing from the housing. Remove the horn wire tube. Remove the inner column worm gear shaft assembly. Remove the side oil seal. Cleaning and inspection. Clean all the parts with kerosene oil. Inspect the following parts visually: bearings for pitting and overheating, rocker shaft and inner column for pitting or wear, steering housing for cracks and enlargement of mounting holes. Replace the defective parts. Assembling. Check the bush for its free movement on the roller shaft. Fix the bush on the side cover of the steering gearbox. Fix the bush on the steering gearbox body. Check for free movement of the rocker shaft in the bush by rotating the rocker shaft by hand. Refit the worm gear shaft inner column in the housing. Fix the upper ball bearing in the housing. Fix the top housing cap with the shims. In this video, we have learned to dismantle the steering gearbox, inspect the parts of the steering gearbox, assemble the steering gearbox, adjust the backlash and preload in the steering gearbox, fit the steering box on the vehicle and the steering wheel, check toe in, toe out, check the camber angle, check the caster angle and kingpin inclination. I hope you have a clear understanding of this session. Thank you all and see you in the next video. Hope you have a clear understanding of this session. Thank you all and see you in the next video. Hello everyone and welcome to this module on the mechanical motor vehicle. In today's video, let us learn to check and top up the power steering fluid and conduct pressure testing and flushing of the power steering system. By the end of this video, you will be able to check the power steering fluid level and its condition, top up the fluid level in the power steering system, conduct the power steering fluid pressure test, perform fluid flushing of the power steering system, and fill and bleed the power steering fluid system. Let us collect the tools, equipment and materials required to do this. Trainees Toolkit 1, Vehicle with Power Steering 1, Pressure Gauge 1, Power Steering Hose as required, Hydraulic oil as required, cotton waste as required, soap oil as required, 5W oil as required. Checking the steering fluid level. Make sure that the engine is turned off and cool enough to touch. Locate the power steering reservoir and bleed valve. Remove the cap and observe the fluid level. Most power steering reservoirs are made of clear plastic and the cap does not have to be removed to observe the fluid level. There may be markings or lines on the dipstick attached to the cap, indicating the minimum and maximum levels. Check the fluid condition and, if needed, replace the fluid. If the fluid level is very low, find the cause for the loss of fluid in the power steering system. If the fluid level is below the minimum mark, you may need to add more power steering fluid. Slowly, add small amounts of the fluid at a time, checking the level frequently to avoid overfilling. If any part is damaged or worn out, replace the defective part. If needed, bleed the power steering system by operating the steering wheel lock to lock. Ensure proper action of the power steering system. Pressure testing. Check the power steering fluid level. Check the power steering pump drive belt and adjust if necessary. Start the engine and listen for noises from the power steering system. Attach a power steering gauge to the pump. Fill and bleed the power steering system. Start the engine and observe the pressure gauge reading at the high temperature line, pump, control valve and relief valve. When the engine is running, turn the steering to the left and right and observe the pressure gauge reading. When the engine is running, close the pressure gauge valve and observe the pressure reading. The flush system. Place a pan under the power steering reservoir. Remove the return hose fitting at the reservoir and allow the fluid to flow from the reservoir and the return hose into the pan. Plug the return port and fill the fluid into the reservoir. Start the engine and allow the fluid to drain from the return hose into the pan. Add clear fluid to the reservoir as the old fluid drains. Start the engine and allow the fluid to flow from the return hose into the pan. Filling and bleeding. Make sure that the engine is turned off and cooled down. Remove the power steering reservoir cap and check the fluid level. Add fluid as needed to fill it up. Replace the cap. Locate the power steering bleed valve on the steering box. Trace the power steering lines from the steering box to the power steering pump and other components. If there is a bleed valve, it may be located along these lines. Look for any markings or labels on the steering box itself that indicate the presence of a bleed valve. If steering the car causes some noise and makes the steering more difficult, it could be due to an air pocket that is trapped in the power steering pump. Open the bleed valve and turn the steering wheel several times lock to lock to close one bleed valve. Ensure that there is no air in the power steering fluid line. Check the power steering fluid level before driving. In this video, we have discussed how to check the power steering fluid level and its condition, top up the fluid level in the power steering system, perform the power steering fluid pressure test, fluid flush as a power steering system, fill and bleed the power steering fluid system. I hope you have a clear understanding of this session. Thank you all and see you in the next session. Hope you have a clear understanding of this session. Thank you all and see you in the next video. Hello everyone and welcome to this module on the mechanical motor vehicle. In today's video, let us learn to inspect and adjust the engine drive belt and service a steering system. By the end of this video, you will be able to inspect the engine drive belt, adjust the engine drive belt, locate the electronic power steering wire circuit, read the electronic power steering wire circuit, and troubleshoot the electronic power steering system. Let us collect the tools, equipment, machinery, and materials required for this. Trainee Toolkit 1, Heavy Vehicle 1, Vehicle with Power Steering 1, Engine Drive Belt 1, Working Model of an Electronic Power Steering Vehicle with Electronic Power Steering 1 set, Scan Tool 1, Multimeter 1, Power Steering Oil as required, Cotton Waste as required, Soap Oil as required, and Connecting Wires as required. Inspecting and adjusting the engine drive belt. Visually, check the engine drive belt for excessive wear and cracks. Look for any visible cracks in the belt. Some cracks may be normal wear, but if you notice deep or extensive cracks, it is a sign that the belt is reaching the end of its lifespan. Replace any wear or cracks if found in the engine drive belt. Apply thumb pressure on the fan belt at the center between the damper and water pump pulleys. The belt should depress by 12 to 18 mm. Disconnect the negative terminal of the battery. Loosen the mounting bolts of an alternator or dynamo. Loosen the nuts at the link bracket. Push the alternator or dynamo away from the engine with a suitable lever until the correct tension is obtained. Tighten the bolts and nuts. Ensure that the belt is properly aligned on all the pulleys. Misalignment may cause uneven wear and affect the performance of the belt. Recheck the belt tension. Refit the battery cable. Locate the EPS or electronic power steering wiring circuit. Identify the electronic power steering components. Read the wiring. Check the power steering oil level and top up if required. Switch on the ignition. Inspect the EPS warning light. If the light does not turn on, check the warning light circuit as per the service manual. Start the engine and check to see if the EPS warning light goes off. If it remains on after starting the engine, then check the warning light circuit as per the service manual procedure. Check the steering function and note down the problem, such as hard steering, vehicle pulling to one side, poor self-centering, excessive steering play, and abnormal noise in the steering gearbox. Turn the ignition switch to the off position. Connect the scan tool with the data link connector or the DLC. Start the engine. Read the diagnostic trouble code or DTC displayed in the scanner. Turn the ignition switch off and remove the scan tool. Troubleshoot the diagnostic trouble code recorded in the ECM or the engine control module. Check the sensor, switches, wiring harness control modules and other parts. Repair and replace the defective parts as per the service manual procedure. Start the engine and recheck the proper functioning of the EPS. Turn the ignition switch off. Connect the scanner to the DLC. Turn the ignition on. Erase the DTC recorded on the scanner tool. Turn the ignition off after erasing the DTC. Remove the scan tool. The vehicle speed sensor can be rechecked for its resistance by disconnecting the connector. The function of the vehicle speed sensor can be checked by measuring the generated pulse as its voltage. For this measurement, use an analog voltmeter while spinning wheels on the lift with the selector lever in D position. Vehicle speed sensor specifications. Coil resistance should be between 100 to 300 ohms and the voltage output should be at 40 km per hour. Troubleshoot the EPS. Disconnect the VSS or vehicle speed sensor coupler while the ignition is off. If OK, then proceed to step 2. Else, replace the VSS. If OK, then proceed to step 2. Else, replace the VSS. Check the connection to the VSS or the BRW wire terminal. If OK, then check VSS resistance. The resistance between the terminals should be 100 to 300 ohms and the resistance between the terminal and transmission body should be 1 mega ohm or more. Check the VSS and counter shaft gear for damage, foreign material, correct installation and good condition. If the wire and connections are okay, check the intermittent trouble of the fault PCM. Else, clean, repair or replace. In this video, we have discussed how to inspect the engine drive belt, adjust the engine drive belt, locate the electronic power steering wiring circuit, read the electronic power steering wiring circuit, and troubleshoot the electronic power steering. Hope you have a clear understanding of this session. Thank you all and see you in the next video. Hello everyone and welcome to this module on the mechanical motor vehicle. In today's video, we will service the wheel bearing and perform troubleshooting, cause and remedy for abnormal wear of the tire, wheel wobbling, poor self-centering, hard steering and vehicle pulling to one side. By the end of this video, you will be able to remove the front wheel bearings, clean and inspect the bearings, assemble and set the front wheel bearing play, rectify abnormal wear of tires, rectify wheel wobbling, rectify poor self-centering, rectify hard steering, and rectify the vehicle pulling to one side. Let us collect the tools and equipment required to do this. Trainee's Toolkit 1, Jack 1, Wood Blank 2, Wheel Spanner 1, Hammer 1, Bearing Puller 1, Multimeter 1, Vehicle in running condition 1, Cotton waste as required, Grease as required, Kerosene as required, Oil as required, Split pin as required, Washer as required, and taper roller bearing as required. Removing the front wheel. Chock the wheels. Jack up the frame. Support the frame by using the screw jack. Remove the wheel from the vehicle. In the disc brake system, remove the brake caliper. Remove the rotor if it is integral with the hub. Remove the cotter key from the spindle nut. Remove the spindle nut and washer. Remove the hub assembly. Remove the outer bearing from the hub. Remove the oil seal from the inner hub and discard it. Remove the inner bearing from the hub. Cleaning and inspection. Clean the bearing thoroughly. Inspect the bearing for wear or damage. Clean the bearing outer race and hub interior. Check the race for wearing and damage. If any damage is found in the inner and outer race, it should be changed. Assemble and set wheel bearing play. Pack a small amount of grease in the hub cavity. Grease the bearings by hand. Place the inner bearing in the hub and install the new oil seal. Clean the spindle. Reinstall the hub on the spindle. Install the outer bearing. Install the washer and spindle nut. Adjust bearing or play as per specification. Install a new cotter pin. Reinstall the rotor. Reinstall the caliper. Reinstall the wheel. Rotate the wheel and check the wheel bearing for free rotation. Let us look at the possible faults, reasons for the cause and possible remedies. Abnormal wear of the tire can be caused by low air pressure and improper toe in and toe out. It can also be caused due to worn out wheel bearing, kingpin bush, tie rod play or brakes causing unbalanced suspension. The remedy for this is maintaining proper air pressure, adjusting toe in and toe out, replacing the bearing or bush, adjusting the brakes properly or replacing the damaged suspension parts. Wheel wobbling can be caused due to loose wheel nuts or the wheel bearing or kingpin being worn out, improper air pressure or the loose fitting of the tie rod. The remedy for this is to tighten the nuts and fittings, replace the bearing or kingpin and maintain proper air pressure. Poor self-cantering can be caused due to improper linkage adjustment, tire pressure, wheel alignment or improper position of the drop arm and excess steering wheel preload. The remedy lies in adjusting the steering linkage, wheel alignment, preload, maintaining appropriate tire pressure and removing and refitting the parts to ensure that they are in proper position. Hard steering can be caused by low tire pressure, improper size of the tire, dry kingpin bearing or a bend in the axle beam. The remedy lies in maintaining proper air pressure, causing the correct size tire, lubricating the bearing and straightening or replacing the axle beam. If the vehicle is pulling to one side, this can be caused due to low tire pressure on one side, improper size of the tire or improper brake adjustment, broken front road spring center bolt, or a disturbed front wheel alignment. This can be easily fixed by maintaining the correct air pressure, replacing the tire or center bolt, adjusting the brakes and adjusting the front wheel alignment. In this video, we have discussed how to remove the front wheel bearings, clean and inspect the bearings, assemble and set front wheel bearing play, rectify abnormal wear of tires, rectify wheel wobbling, rectify poor self-centering, rectify hard steering, and rectify the wheel pulling to one side. I hope you have a clear understanding of this session. Thank you all and see you in the next video. Hope you have a clear understanding of this session. Thank you all and see you in the next video. Hello everyone and welcome to this module on the mechanical motor vehicle. In today's video, let us learn to inspect a chassis frame, assemble the shock absorber and lubricate a suspension system. By the end of this video, you will be able to inspect the chassis frame visually, check the chassis frame for bends, twists and cracks, remove the shock absorber, inspect the shock absorber, refit the shock absorber, and lubricate the suspension system. Let us collect the tools, machinery, and materials required to do this. Trainee's toolkit 1, plumb bob 1, jack 1, hammer 1, heavy vehicle 1, cotton waste as required, chalk as required, bush as required, oil as required, grease as required, soap oil as required, and a cleaning solvent as required. Inspect the chassis frame visually. Check the chassis frame visually for cracks and major damage. If any major damage is found, send the chassis frame for repair. Check the chassis frame for bends and twists. Mark a diagram on a leveled floor according to the manufacturer's specification. Place the frame on the floor of the diagram. Check the diagonal and inline measurement of the frame on the floor. If the frame is bent or twisted, the side member and cross member points will not align with the floor diagram. If the deviation found is more than the specified limit of the manufacturer, send the frame for repair. Place the frame on the uniform height horse support and coincide the same with the floor diagram. Make several plumb bob point marks where the plumb bob point touches the ground. Mark the diagram where the plumb bob touches and makes a diagram. Compare the plumb bob's diagram with the manufacturer's diagram. By using a plumb bob, measure the height of the frame from the floor at different places. If there is any difference between the heights and the frame is sagging, then send it for repair. Inspect the rivets of the frame by hitting with a ball peen hammer. Loose rivets will give a dull sound. Change the rivets or send the frame for repair. Check for chassis cracks from the hanger bracket holes, rivet holes, and cross member mounting points. Crack repair is a special welding technique that is done by a specialist. Removing the shock absorber. Chock the front and rear wheels. Place jacks under the spring pad supporting the axle. Jack up the vehicle until the wheels are off the ground. Hold the shock absorber and remove the shock absorber mounting bolt from the top and bottom mounting bracket spring pad. Remove the shock absorber from the mounting bracket with a spacer at the top. Inspection of the shock absorber. Inspect and replace if found unserviceable. Replace the shock absorber rubber bushes. Check the shock absorber for compression and leakage of oil. Installation of the shock absorber. Hold the shock absorber along with the spacers at the top. Hold the shock absorber and tighten the mounting bolts on the bracket. Lock the nut with a split pin. Remove the jacks from the vehicle. Press the vehicle body by hand and check the shock absorber action. Lubricate the suspension system. Identify the lubrication points on the vehicle. Clean the lubrication points with cotton cloth. Visually check the grease nipples for any damage. In case of any damage in the grease nipples, replace them. Use the power operate gun to apply grease onto the lubrication points. Use nipple grease for suspension lubrication points. Fix the grease gun on the shackle pin, grease nipple points by pumping the grease gun till all the old grease comes out from the shackle pin. Lubricate the hanger pin and nipple point as per the above procedure. Lubricate the propeller shaft's universal joint. Lubricate the front wheel CV joint. Clean all the lubricated points, wiping out surplus grease if present. The greasing points are as follows: tie rod end, strut piston rod bushing, CV joint, stub axle, wheel bearing, steering cable lubrication, brake linkage, bush set of front struts, gear shift linkage, clutch pedal linkage, universal joints and slip joint, brake caliper unit, door hinges and locks, water pump bearing and steering linkages. In this video, we have learned to inspect the chassis frame visually, check the chassis frame for bends, twists and cracks, remove the shock absorber, inspect the shock absorber, refit the shock absorber and lubricate the suspension system. I hope you have a clear understanding of this session. Thank you all and see you in the next video. Hope you have a clear understanding of this session. Thank you all and see you in the next video. Hello everyone and welcome to this module on the mechanical motor vehicle. In today's video, let us learn to overhaul and inspect the shackle, leaf spring, front and rear suspension. By the end of this video, you will be able to remove and dismantle the components of the torsion bar, assemble the torsion bar and fit it on the vehicle, remove the coil spring, assemble the coil spring and fit it on the vehicle, overhaul the shackle and overhaul the leaf spring. Let us collect the tools, accessories, machines and material required to do this. Trainee's Toolkit 1, Jack 1, Hammer or Sludge 1, Vehicle 1, Leaf Spring as required, Shackle as required, Cotton Waste as required, Grease as required, Oil as required and rubber bushes as required. Overhauling of the torsion bar suspension. Park the vehicle on smooth level ground. Chock the rear wheels. Jack up the front wheels and place hoses below the frame. Remove the split pin and loosen the nut of the steering arm at both the ends. Remove the wheels. Support the lower suspension arm. Disconnect the shock absorber from the lower arm. Remove the rear end of the eye-bolt extension arm with rubber bushes from the frame and the suspension arm. Remove support from the arm. Mark the position of the torsion bar in relation to the lower arm with a chalk or pencil. Mark the position of the torsion bar in relation to the rear bracket. Take out the set screws from the retaining plate. Remove the retaining plate from the rear end of the torsion bar. Remove the nut and bolt securing the rear end adjusting arm or the vernier bracket to the frame. Remove the torsion bar with the help of the special tool. Remove the left hand and right hand torsion bars. Ensure that the right and left hand side torsion bars are not interchanged. Inspect the serrations at the splined ends and ensure straightness of the torsion bar. If the torsion bars are found defective, replace with new ones. Assemble the torsion bar. Assemble the torsion bar by keeping the locking nut slack for necessary adjustments. Fit the wheels, remove the horse, lower the jack and take it out. Adjust the suspension height by adjusting the vernier bracket by turning the vernier bolt at the rear end. Rotate the vernier bracket up and down as per the manufacturer's recommendation. Turning the vernier bracket upward reduces the height of the vehicle. Check and adjust the suspension height as per the manufacturer's recommendations. Tighten the bracket bolts. Overhauling of the coil spring type suspension system. The coil spring is fitted in between the arms. Chock the rear wheels. Loosen the wheel nuts by 1 or 2 threads. Jack up the front suspension and place hoses under the side member of the chassis so that there is no load on the front wheels. Release the jack and take it out. Remove the grease cup and cotter pin. Remove the castle nut and adjusting nuts. Remove the washer. Remove the outer bearing. Remove the brake drum. Remove the inner bearing along with the grease retainer. Remove the brake assembly from the steering knuckle or stub axle. Remove the gasket. Loosen the upper arm nuts and take out the nut and the inner shaft. Remove the top of the shock absorber foundation bolt. Remove the bottom of the shock absorber foundation bolt. Remove the upper arm ball joint. Remove the lower arm with the lower arm ball joint. Take out the spindle. Remove the stabilizer rod. Slowly take out the packing under the lower arm. Take out the coil spring along with the shock absorber and spring seating. Clean all the parts with kerosene. Check the ball joints, arm links and spring seating stabilizer. If necessary, replace the worn out parts. In this video, we have discussed how to remove and dismantle the components of the torsion bar. Assemble the torsion bar and fit it on the vehicle. Remove the coil spring. Assemble the coil spring and fit it on the vehicle. Overhaul the shackle. Overhaul the leaf spring. Hope you have a clear understanding of this session. Thank you all and see you in the next video. Hello everyone. In our previous video session, we learned to remove and dismantle the components of the torsion bar, assemble the torsion bar and fit it on the vehicle, remove the coil spring. In continuation, in this video session, we are going to learn to assemble the coil spring, remove the shackles, inspect the shackles, remove the leaf spring, inspect and replace worn out parts, assemble the leaf spring and refit the leaf spring. Let us collect the tools, accessories, machines and material required to do this. Trainee's toolkit 1, jack 1, hammer or sludge 1, vehicle 1, leaf spring as required, shackle as required, cotton waste as required, grease as required, oil as required and rubber bushes as required. Assemble the coil spring. Fix the lower arm with a bush and nut. Fix the upper arm with a bush and nut. Insert the coil spring and shock absorber on the lower arm. Put a jack under the lower arm and raise the jack. Align the arms and insert the inner shaft with a washer and tighten the nuts. Connect the upper ball joint and the lower ball joint along with the spindle and tighten it. Fix the shock absorber nut on the top and tighten it. Fix the gasket. Fix the brake assembly on the spindle and tighten the bolts. Insert the inner bearing along with the grease retainer. Fix the brake drums. Insert the outer bearing with a washer. Tighten the adjusting nut and adjust the bearing plate. Fix the spindle castle nut and tighten the same. Fix the cotter pin and grease cup. Take out the jack under the lower arm. Fix the wheel and tighten the wheel nuts by hand. Jack up the vehicle and take out the hoses from the chassis. Release the jack. Tighten the wheel nuts as per the specified torque. Remove the chock from the rear wheels. Remove shackles. Chock the wheels and raise the vehicle with a screw jack. Place a horse support under the frame so that the leaf spring will be free from load. Remove the draw bolt. Remove the grease nipples. Drive out the shackle with a puller. Remove the shackle. Replace the bush if necessary. Inspect the shackle. Clear all the parts with kerosene, high pressure water and air. Replace the shackle pin bushes. Replace the worn out parts if necessary. Align the holes of the spring bush and the shackle bracket with a rod. Do not use your finger to align the hole. Assemble shackles. Fit the shackle with the shackle pin in the spring eye. Replace the assembly if worn out. Fit the shackle with a hanger lock on the frame. Tighten the draw bolt. Fit the grease nipple and grease it. Lift the vehicle and remove the horse. Press the body of the vehicle and check for proper functioning of the shackle. Remove the leaf spring. Chock the wheels. Jack up the frame and lift the vehicle just enough for the wheels to clear the ground. Place a horse to support the frame and take out the jack. Disconnect the shock absorber if provided. Remove the clamp bolt from the shackle. Remove the spring fixing bolts and nuts and pads. Put the jack to support the axles. Remove the grease nipples. Remove the shackle pins with the help of special tools. Remove the leaf spring assembly from the axle. Inspection and replacement of worn out parts. Put the spring in a press and measure the pre-camber. Apply full load and observe the camber. This will be the negative camber. Set the spring eyes at a higher plane on the press. Measure the distance between the spring center and the base plate. Any deflection load as per the specification. Apply deflection load as per the specification. Again, measure the distance between the spring center and the base plate. Calculate the deflection of the spring, that is, the difference between two readings. If the deflection is not as per recommendation, hold the spring in a vise firmly and remove the nuts and bolts from the spring clamp and release the vise slowly. Then, separate the spring leaf. Inspect each spring leaf for crack or damage. Clean the spring leaf with thin oil. Apply graphite oil and observe the crack. Replace the damaged leaf. Coat each leaf with graphite oil or grease containing 10% graphite. Assembling of the leaf spring. Assemble the springs. Press new bushes into the front spring eyes and fix in position. Straighten the clips if distorted. Check parallelism of the spring. Reject if the first leaf is not parallel. Finally, fit the clips and tighten up the nuts. Refitting of the leaf spring. Place the spring perfectly on the spring saddle provided on the axles. Drive in the shackle pin after aligning the spring eye into the hanger bracket using a hammer. Do not use fingers for aligning the spring leaf holes. Fix and tighten the clamp bolts of the spring shackle and spring brackets. Fix the pads and tighten the U-clamp bolt and nut slightly using the special tool. Release the jack. Finally, tighten the nuts of the clamp bolt or U-bolt nuts to the recommended torque. Fit the grease nipple and lubricate. At the time of assembling, use special levers for tightening the U-bolt clamps. In this video, we have discussed how to assemble the coil spring, remove the shackles, inspect the shackles, remove the leaf spring, inspect and replace worn out parts, assemble the leaf spring, and refit the leaf spring. Hope you have a clear understanding of this session. Thank you all and see you in the next video.
Perform troubleshooting and remedy for horn, no horn operation, poor sound quality, horn sound continuously, and to replace the horn if faulty.
Hello, I hope you are all excited for today's session. In this module, we are going to learn how to perform troubleshooting and remedy for horn, no horn operation, poor sound quality, horn sounds continuously, to replace the horn if faulty.
Objectives. At the end of this video, you shall be able to fault finding in horn circuit, fault rectification in horn circuit. Let us collect the tools and equipment required to do this exercise. Tools, instruments required. Trainees toolkit 1 number. Test lamp 1 number. Screwdrivers multimeter, equipment required, running car 1 number, materials required, cotton waste as required, soap oil as required, insulation tape as required, wire as required, fuse as required. An automobile horn is a safety device in vehicles producing a loud sound to alert pedestrians and other drivers. It consists of a vibration mechanism activated by the driver, usually through a button on the steering wheel. The horn is used to signal presence, warn of danger, and communicate intentions on the road. Replace the defective horn from the vehicle. Locate the horn assembly. Check the horn connections. Check the function of the horn assembly. If found defective horn, remove the horn electrical connections. Dismount the horn mounting bolts. Remove the horn assembly from the vehicle. Start with a visual inspection of the horn components under the vehicle's hood. Check the fuse box to see if the horn fuse is intact. Look for any visible damage to wiring or the horn itself. Use a multimeter or test lamp to check if power is reaching the horn switch when the button is pressed. If no power, trace the wiring back to the fuse box, looking for any breaks or damage. Show how to remove and test the horn relay using a multimeter. Test for continuity and proper functioning of the relay. If a faulty component is identified, fuse, relay, horn switch. The importance of using the correct replacement part and proper installation. Select the suitable horn assembly. Mount the horn assembly on the vehicle and connect horn wires and test and tune up the horn. Ensure the horn works properly when the button is pressed. Horn troubleshooting. Causes, remedies. Horn push button defective, replace. Horn contact point burnt, replace. More gap between horn point, adjust. Wire disconnected, connect wire. Loose earthing contact, tighten the earth wire. Damaged diaphragm, replace. Causes, remedies. Low voltage supply, check battery charging system. Improper horn tone adjustment, adjust for proper tuning. Wire loose connection, tighten the wire connection. Improper contact for horn switch, replace. Horn diaphragm assembly defective, replace. Horn sounds continuously. Causes, remedies. Horn switch defective, replace. Horn magnetic switch defective, replace. Power continuous supply, disconnect the power. Recap.
In this video, we have discussed how to fault finding in horn circuit, fault rectification in horn circuit. Hope you have a clear understanding of this. Do this exercise with the help of your instructor. Thank you.
Namaskar and a very good morning. I'm K.K. Mishra from Ministry of Power, Government of India, and I'm here to discuss and talk about the various initiatives taken by Government of India, Ministry of Power regarding digital initiatives. This is a creation of an ecosystem which enables consumer not only to facilitate the various services but also empower and provide better and improved services over a long period of time. So let's start with the creation of the ecosystem. The basic objective of power is that everybody should have access to it. Unless and until we have access to power, everything nullifies. So Government of India has launched Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gram Jyoti Yojana for the rural sector.